In this video, I'll show you exactly how I outsource and automate 99% of my Amazon KDP business. So if you're new to the channel, my name is Sean. I build 2 multiple 6 figures a year Amazon KDP businesses. And I'm at a point where I literally only work a couple hours a week on my Amazon KDP business to maintain that income. If I'm launching a new book, maybe I work a couple hours a week, but if not, then I literally work 0 hours a week because every single step in this business that requires attention is basically outsourced and it's handled by my team. So if you want a similar setup for your business and have more time for yourself as well, then this video is for you. So let's get right into exactly how I built a fully automated KDP business. In this video, we're going to cover what task I outsource, where to find talents, and how I spend less than an hour a week on my KDP business. So before we go and learn about the exact outsourcing and automating strategies, there's one thing you have to understand. And that is that in every business, you're either investing time or investing money, right? You're paying with time or paying with money. So you can try and save money by doing everything yourself, but you have to understand that there's this thing called the opportunity cost, right? If you're spending 5 hours doing a task that you can literally pay somebody $5, $10 to do it for, then it just doesn't make sense. You just lost that 5 hours that you could have done, something else that would have made way more than $5 or $10, right? So, you have to kind of think of it that way when it comes to business. Basically, you have to identify what are the tasks that I currently do that I can outsource. Somebody else can come in and do this for me, right? And what are the tasks that I really should be doing myself that's going to move the needle forward the most, right? There are tasks out there that you can easily outsource. You can pay somebody very cheaply and they can easily handle what you're trying to do, right? And there are tasks out there that are a lot harder to outsource, a lot harder for someone to come in and replace you. So with that being said, there are 2 important tasks that I still do myself, starting with keyword research. So keyword research is one of those things where yes, it's possible to outsource, but it's a lot harder than other tasks. Plus, it is one of the most important steps in publishing. So if you mess this up, like literally anything else you do, really doesn't matter, right? You can have the most amazing book, but if it's in a bad keyword, bad topic that nobody cares about, then you're not gonna make any money. So it's super, super important. So I still do this part myself because I'm really, really good at it. But what I do to save time is I batch research months worth of keywords at once, because I'm at a point where I can literally just sit down couple hours and I can just find a bunch of keywords that I can go and publish in, which is basically worth multiple months, if not a year worth of content that I can create just from that couple hours of me sitting down. So that's something that I still do. The next one is title creation. So this is also something I still do myself. However, I've been using AI a lot. And what's cool about AI is that you can actually tell AI the type of book title that you'd like in terms of structure. And you just ask it to give you something like that for this new topic that you're trying to write about, right? So it makes the process a lot faster. If you would hire, you can go to Upwork, you can go to Fiverr, but honestly, it's probably best if you just do this yourself. So as an example, right, the way I've been using AI is, let's say this is my title. Or it doesn't have to be your title, it can be your competitor title too. I just take an example book title that I like. I go to ChatGPT and I basically just ask it to give me book title ideas for a book on whatever topic that I'm trying to write about, right? Following the title structure that, that I like. And just like that, right? So it's super similar to the structure that I like, which is this one, but it's applied to the topic, in this case, decluttering. So it really speeds up the process. From here, I obviously tweak it because it's never perfect as is, but it definitely helps a lot. So those are the 2 tasks that I do myself. Now let's go into how I outsource things, right? So the first one is book outline. So book outline is basically, creating a skeleton, basically creating chapters that we should include in our book. And this is something that you can outsource. This is something that, a good researcher can do, right? So I hire someone on Upwork, okay? And what they can do is use AI plus, do their own research. So using their human eye to it. And I typically pay between $50 to $100. To be completely honest, it's more closer to $50 for the type of books that I'm publishing for a 30K word nonfiction book, right? So if you're doing more technical, more complicated topics, you probably want to pay $100 a little bit more for someone to create an outline, but you can easily hire someone like this on Upwork. In terms of what the person you hired will be doing to create this outline, once again, you can use AI to get a baseline idea, and then you will add manual research to it. So I just asked ChatGPT a follow-up question saying, can you create a detailed book outline for this book? And then we have, a lot of these stuff, right? And so from here, you kind of have to look at it and say, all right, which one is something that I want to keep, which one I don't like, and we're just going to ditch, right? So you start filtering out these chapters, subsections, right? And then you start adding it to a Google Doc. And from here, you will add it with additional research. Like, let's just say this is my competitor book, right? Then I'm going to look inside here, and I'm just going to look at the table of contents and start asking myself the same thing. Is this a good chapter? Is this something that I don't need in my book, right? And I start, adding the ones that I like and not add the ones that I don't like, right? So I'm not just ripping off my competitors. I'm going to do this with multiple books, but if the competitor has a chapter inside their book and they are a bestseller, right? Then that means that customers, first of all, enjoyed that chapter. And the best-selling competitor obviously did their research, and based on their research, they know that this chapter was important to add in the book, right? So I'm just going to piggyback off of their research, right? It's going to save me some time too. So that's how I'm going to start plucking their chapters. I'm also going to come down and read the reviews here. I'm going to read a bunch of reviews, or, when I say I will do it, I'm talking about, the person that I'm going to hire, right? They will start reading the reviews and basically find patterns in terms of what customers like, what they didn't like about this book. And then whatever they liked, I'm going to try and incorporate it into my book. What they didn't like, we're not going to try and do that. And so that is how you can combine AI plus manual research to have a very, very detailed book outline. So now that you understand the process, you can go and hire someone on Upwork and train them on how you do it. But that is the book outline. The next one is ghostwriting. So ghostwriting, I use a ghostwriting company when testing new niches, right? Which I use the Urban Writers as my ghostwriting company. Once I decide to build a niche and I go deep in it, I try to hire a dedicated writer on Upwork instead of, continuously using a ghostwriting company. The reason why is because it's very important to have the same tonality, writing style, book content, stories that you incorporate in the book if you're building out a brand, right? So it's best to work with the same writer. You don't have to. I made it work many, many times, but it's much, much easier. So for that reason, working with ghostwriting companies, sometimes it's tricky to, work with the same person, right? So eventually I want to shift towards working with someone direct on Upwork. Now, if you need a step-by-step tutorial on how to hire ghostwriters, I do have a video that shows you how to do that. So I'll leave a link to this video in the description below. All right, next one is illustrations. So honestly, you can go to Canva, you can go to Creative Fabrica. A lot of people try to create low content, medium content books by trying to plug, a bunch of different free stock images that they get from those sites. Also, they try to use AI for it. And what happens is that the book doesn't have any consistency in terms of the images, right? They all look different, in terms of style. And that doesn't work out well, to be completely honest. Like, you're going to make some money, but if you want to make big money, it's probably not something that you should be doing. I still use Canva and Creative Fabrica to get simple images, but I wouldn't rely on that 100%, right? Typically what I do is to hire an illustrator and I pay them for unique custom illustrations. In terms of the rate, let's just say you're trying to create something like this, bold and easy coloring pages, right? This is something you can literally pay someone $3 to $5 per page. Okay, so this is a $3 to $5 image. Okay, if you want something more complex, and it's gonna be up to $10 or more, but by working with someone long term, you can negotiate a bulk order discount or a long term discount, right? So there's a lot of negotiations that comes into it, but that's what I do. I do have my own illustrator that I work with. Next one is editing and proofreading. So once your book is written, right, you have to go and do the editing and proofreading. Now, if you hire a good ghostwriter, they can do the editing and proofreading themselves, right? And obviously you should read the book yourself before you publish, obviously. Even if it's proofread by somebody else, you should still read it to make sure it's good. But on top of that, I try to have another set of eyes go through the book, right? So I hire a separate editor and proofreader. So what I've done is my editor actually do the book outline as well. So she started as an editor first, right? I hired her as an editor, but later on I trained her to do the outline. And the reason why is because, when you're creating a book outline, you do a lot of research on the topic, right? You have to do a lot of research. So by going through the process, you kind of become very knowledgeable in the topic, right? And you also created the outline. So once the writer comes in and start writing the book and you go and check it, right? Proofread and edit it, if the writer followed the outline that you created or not, right? You also know what information is bad, what information is good, right? What part to change and what not, because you did the outline research and you are pretty knowledgeable about the topic. So that's why I think having the editor do the outline makes sense. It's very synergistic in terms of the task, but that's what I do. So the editor gains expertise through the outline research. It leads to better quality proofreading and editing. And for the editing and proofreading, I basically pay $100 per 30,000 words. Now, if you're watching this and you're like, that is so cheap, $100, for a 30K word editing. Well, you got to understand that the book that's written is pretty much there's no errors, because the ghostwriter, they already did the proofreading and editing themselves, right? So you don't have to do this crazy edits where you take a chunk of this portion from one chapter and put it into another chapter, and you're not moving content around. The editor, all they're doing is reading through and fixing typos, picking up little typos here and there, if it even exists, right? So basically you're just reading the book. You're not really doing editing, you know? So that's why it's very chill. You're done in like an hour or 2 hours. So I think $100 for that is a pretty good rate. So the next one is book covers. So for low and medium content books, you know, the whole point of doing low and medium content books is because you don't want to invest so much money up front into the business, right? So typically it doesn't really make sense to spend a lot of money for a book cover for this, unless, you know, you already have a brand established and you're really trying to go hard with this niche. If that's the case, I'll be paying more, but just to get started, I recommend using platforms like Fiverr for a book cover, paying between $5 to $30. I will start with that and then, you know, increase as I make more money from this brand. Because the purpose, once again, is to keep production costs low so you can make these books at a low cost, start making money, building the business, and then you can invest more. So as an example, some of the gigs that I recommend personally would be someone like this. She does a book cover for $15 and she specializes in low content books, something like this. I think it looks pretty nice. It's much better than what I can make. So I would start with this gig if I'm trying to go into low content, medium content. This is another example, $45. You can get a book cover, but also a book interior. And he does a really, really good job as well. So if you guys want to check out these gigs, I'll leave a link in the description. Now, if I'm doing high content books, you know, the purpose of high content books is I'm trying to make big money, right? And I really want to make sure every single step is 5 stars, 10 out of 10 quality, right? So for that reason, I'm going to go hard on the book cover as well. So the platform I use is 99 Designs or Upwork to hire a book cover designer. The cost typically is between $100 to $200 per cover. I personally have a designer that I pay $115 per book cover, delivered in all 3 formats. So ebook, paperback, audio. So you don't have to spend that much in the beginning, but you know, you can build up to it once again. But this ensures really, you know, high quality designs. The next one is book formatting. So book formatting is one of those things that you can honestly just do it yourself if you want to spend some time, right? But at the same time, it's cheap to outsource. So you really got to ask yourself, is the time that I'm spending learning book formatting and outsourcing worth it, right? If you can outsource book formatting for, let's say, $50, you know, and you spend 4 hours doing it, right? And so if you make $20 an hour at your day job and you spend 4 hours, that means you spent $80 worth of time doing this, but you could have outsourced it for $50. So you just lost $30, right? So that's kind of how I look at everything. And that's kind of how you should be looking at it if you are a business owner. But this is how I do it. So I have a VA, virtual assistant, who formats my ebook and a paperback. And since he is a virtual assistant that does a lot of other things as well, and this is just one part of the task, I pay less. Like I pay I think it comes down to like $20 per book that's formatted, right? So it's very, very easy to outsource, very cheap. You can even hire a VA and have someone watch this video on book formatting that I filmed and then just have them start doing it, right? It's super easy. If you want to check out this video, I'll leave a link in the description. If you would hire someone that already knows book formatting on Fiverr, as an example, it's probably going to be between $50 to $100, which I still think is a fair price. Once again, you can do it yourself to cut costs, but it's better to outsource, especially for quality, right? And also time savings. So if you want a very simple, basic book formatting that's very affordable, there's actually a gig on Fiverr that'll do it for $20, which I think is a really, really good rate. So I'll leave a link to this gig below. But yeah, they will go and format your book, and that is all you need. The next one is cover conversion. So what do I mean by cover conversions? Well, that is once you have your book cover, like the front cover, converting that into paperback, print, hardcover, and even audiobook cover, right? So the converting process of that, because you don't want to just sell your book as an ebook, right? You want to, you know, sell it in many different formats. This ensures broader distribution, and you'll obviously make more money that way. So the simplest way to outsource this, honestly, Fiverr, because this is one of those things where you can outsource super cheap. So you can literally outsource this for like $5 to $10. So here are some examples. We have Suda over here, right? $5. I've literally been working with this person for like 10 years. It's crazy. So $5 will convert your ebook into a ACX or audiobook cover. And this one, if you want to take your book and convert it into a hardcover, it's $10. You can see that I worked with them in the past. So once again, the link is in the description. So I think we all know how profitable audiobook is, but even hardcover books, it usually doesn't sell much, but it's still, something that you can, create for $5-10, just upload, forget about it, and you start making, some sales here and there. And for each sale, let's say you make $3, you make 2 sales, you make your money back. And then you make a couple sales and you're profiting, right? And this is all passive. So I really try to maximize my distribution every single time. So the next one is uploading to KDP. So this is also something that I outsource as well. I don't upload my books to these platforms. So KDP, ACX, Ingram Spark, other platforms that we publish books in, I have my personal VA handle all of this, right? And I pay $5 for each upload. I think I'm paying a little too much, to be completely honest. I want to pay my VA good because he's been with me for a long time. So, that's not an issue. But to be completely honest, like uploading your book to KDP takes like 20 minutes max, right? So, that I'm paying like a $15 per hour rate. And my VA is from Bangladesh, which is like an extremely good rate for them, right? I personally think you can pay $4 an hour for this, which means you're paying per hour. And it's only going to take, once again, 20-30 minutes for them. Now, before I started implementing this strategy, I obviously emailed KDP and checked if this was allowed, right? Somebody else logging into your KDP account. And they said it's completely fine. You just have to trust the person, which makes sense. So we've been doing it for years. No problem. But yeah, you do have to trust them because who knows, they can go and, update the bank account information and stuff. However, every time they try to update the bank account information, you should receive a text verification code, right? Before they can even log in. So obviously you can prevent them from doing it without you knowing. So that is a little safety measure that you have, but you still want to trust them. So maybe start outsourcing this once you work with a person for, a couple months or to a year. All right, next one is getting reviews. So there are many ways to get reviews, right? Building an email list is the best way, best long-term way, but it takes time. Now, you can also go into different Facebook groups, offer free copies of your book. You can follow up, get reviews. That's more manual, time consuming, but that's one way of doing it. And you can use review services like Book Bounty if you want to shortcut the process. But even with this one, there's a little bit of work. You have to go in, leave a review for somebody else, get points, ask for a review for your book. So it still takes some time. So I have my VA do all of these. So my VA goes into my email list, sends out the email saying, hey, who wants to read my book for free, right? Pass out the free copy, get reviews on Amazon. Sometimes I have him go into different Facebook groups and ask for reviews. We don't do a lot of that because we have our email list built up, and we also use Book Bounty, right? So he goes in, do the reviewing on Book Bounty, collect the points, and then ask for a review. So all of this is outsourced as well. By the way, if you don't know what Book Bounty is, it's one of the easiest ways to get reviews fast if you're doing Amazon KDP. So I talked about this in a couple videos. This is their website. It's one of the fastest ways and easiest way to get reviews for your book. I do have a tutorial video on how Book Bounty works. So if you want to check it out, I'll leave a link to this video in the description. So the next one is email marketing. So like I just said, email marketing, you can use it to ask reviews, right? You can also nurture your email list by sending out some value emails, some quick tips, those kind of things, sharing your stories, whatever email, that is nurturing your email list, right? Getting them to know you. Now, you can also use it to promote book launches, so getting actual book sales. And all of this is basically sending out different types of emails. Well, my VA does this as well because every single book launch, we just go through the same exact process. So what I've done is I basically wrote out an email template for every single thing, right? For pre-launch, asking for reviews, I have an email template for that. Once the book is launched, the multi-email sequence that we do, I have a template for that, right? So my VA comes in and he literally just switches out the book title from the template. Everything else is the same. So we're sending basically the same email to the customer, like once a month, right? But no one remembers the email they read a month ago, right? So it works. So my VA update the book title and link in the email templates. This ensures regular engagement with subscribers, increases book sales, review conversions, and saves me a lot of time and effort. All right, the next one is Amazon ads. So for Amazon ads, I highly recommend you just start doing it yourself instead of outsourcing it. I do understand that when you just get started with KDP, it's overwhelming working with Amazon ads. It's confusing, but still you should push through it and learn the basics. Because if you outsource without knowing how it works, there's no way for you to quality check, and that's very, very important, right? So you have to know how to do it before you go and outsource it. Okay, so do it yourself first, but eventually you can outsource this as well, right? So you can use Upwork and hire let's just say a virtual assistant. You train them up on it. That's the cheapest way, but their performance is probably the worst out of all the options, right? The next option is to hire someone who already knows how to run Amazon ads and they're offering it as a service. That's like hiring an agency. And this is the most expensive way, but it's the most hands-off. And this is using a service like AdsDroid, right? But this can cost a decent amount. So the middle ground is using a service like Adigi, which previously known as Azology. They changed the name a little bit, but it looks like this. So this is Adigi. Basically, it is a AI-powered software that will go and help you optimize Amazon ads. So if you have the basic understanding of how Amazon ads work and you're just burning a lot of time optimizing ads every single day, then this will go and help you save a lot of time, right? So you don't even need to hire someone because this software is basically your hire. You know, they're gonna go and do things for you. So essentially you can use this to cut down the time you spend managing Amazon ads from, let's say hours a day to just 1 hour a week. At least that's what they promise on their website. So this is a really, really good starter option if you want to start outsourcing Amazon ads. I highly recommend this. A lot of my students in my paid program is using this and they're loving it. So, I can confidently recommend it. Once again, the link is in the description. And Adigi is created by the same person who does AdsDroid. AdsDroid is an actual Amazon ad agency, so this is more hands-on, right? But they will manage the entire thing. So Adigi is like working with the software, but you still doing, a little bit of Amazon ads yourself. This is completely hands-off. And this is what I actually use. So that was a quick overview on the tasks that I outsource and, my thought process with each one. With that being said, if you want to start building a team, here are some additional tips that I think will be helpful. So number one, you want to use a password sharing tool. So sharing password is a inevitable part when working with other people. Like if you're gonna have someone upload a book on KDP, you will have to share the password for KDP. But directly sharing password is kind of risky, right? So there is like sharing your KDP account password. That's a little sketch if they know the password. So you can use a password manager like LastPass. LastPass is free. It's completely free, and you can actually share your password and user ID with someone without them actually seeing it. So you can have your team download LastPass and they can log in to whatever site you're sharing with LastPass without seeing your password, if that makes sense. But that is a really useful way to share your password. The next thing is, as you start scaling your KDP business, you're gonna go from just working on one book at a time to now you're juggling multiple book projects at the same time. And it becomes very confusing, like, what we have to do for this book and, where we're at with this book and what do we have to do with this book, right? So that's why it is very important to use a project management tool. This is essential for scaling and publishing multiple books at the same time, prevents confusion in tracking book progress, right? It also helps streamline workflow and organization. The best one is using Asana. So just look up Asana. Like I cannot give you a step-by-step tutorial on how to use Asana or how to use LastPass, but honestly, you just have to Google it or YouTube how to use it, right? I'm just telling you what I use, and now you can take it from there, doing more of your research. But Asana, it's free. Once again, you can create a board, super easy. So that is how I manage our book projects. Now, this is a big tip for you guys. So basically, once you start managing different book projects, right, and now you have a ghostwriter, you have a book cover designer, you have an editor, and you have a bunch of people in your team. Now, the next problem that's gonna happen is everyone is reporting to you. Okay, so once the ghostwriter finished writing the book, they're gonna send the book file to you. You get the file, and you're like, okay, let me send this book file to the editor, right? And the editor finished reading the book, and the editor is gonna provide some feedback, some revision requests, but the editor is gonna tell me the revision request and send me the file, which now I have to send it over to the ghostwriter, and the ghostwriter will make the fix, give it to me, and I have to give it to the editor. And now I'm the middleman between the ghostwriter and the editor. And literally just being the middleman takes a lot of time. So this is a huge tip for you to scale, is that you want to remove yourself from being the middleman. And a big secret on how you do that is to have the ghostwriter, have the editor, have the book cover designer, and other freelancers that you hire in one big group chat, right? So if you hired them on Upwork, you can do an Upwork group chat. If you hire them somewhere else, you can use tools like Asana or Slack, and they can all communicate there. Or a WhatsApp group. WhatsApp group might be a little messy, but it doesn't matter. It just has to be a group chat so that they can all communicate with each other without me being involved, right? So what I do is I add all my freelancers in a group chat on Upwork. Okay, so I got the writer, I got the editor, I got the designer. They all communicate directly with each other without me being involved, which is super cool. So the way it works is the writer writes the book. Once they're done writing the book, they will tag the editor, and the editor comes in and edit it, provide revision requests, tag the writer, right? So the writer comes back and, revise the book, and then tag the editor checks again, editor approves it, right? Then tag the designer or illustrator to go and add some illustrations in between. Illustrator adds that, and then once the entire book is done, then they will tag me for the final check. So up until the final check, I literally do nothing. Like, I'm not even involved in the conversation and the book being made, right? So that is a really, really cool tip. If you're just getting started, this is way too advanced. But if you're in publishing for a while, you're juggling multiple books and you're in this situation, I feel like this tip have helped you a lot, right? So let me know in the comments if it actually helped you. Anyways, that is how I have the setup. All right, a couple more things you can outsource, which is bookkeeping and taxes. So initially I started doing bookkeeping myself, just using QuickBooks, but I hated it. QuickBooks was super confusing and I was spending a lot of time, right? So I did that for like a year, but I started making more money to the point where the time that I spent doing QuickBooks just wasn't worth it. So instead I outsourced this as well. So I pay my CPA $100 per month per company, right, to do QuickBooks for it. Once again, I tried QuickBooks, but it's way too time consuming, too confusing. Some people make it work, but it's just not for me. Now that I outsource this, right, it frees up my time to go and make more money than the $100 a month that I'm spending here. So in terms of how you can find a CPA, this one, I don't have a website or anything. You just have to kind of ask around, try to find someone in your area. But I'm sure there are a lot of people that's looking for extra work. So to recap, I outsource most tasks except for keyword research and title creation, right? I oversee the task to maintain quality control. Like I check, the book cover that people provide, right? I check the book writing, I, check the illustrations and stuff. But in terms of actually doing it, I don't do it, right? I hire somebody else to do it for me. So I'm basically the CEO, overseeing people, make sure everything is done correctly and efficiently, but I don't do the work myself. So just want to quickly touch on the myth of 100% passive income, because the truth is no business is ever 100% passive. I think the closest thing to 100% passive income you're going to get to is if you invest in a dividend stock and it pays dividends without you doing anything, right? But dividend investing is not really a business. It's an investment. It's a passive investment, right? So in terms of an active business, publishing, Amazon KDP is, I think, the closest thing to passive income, but it's not 100% passive. Publishing can be semi-passive with the right systems. It requires some oversight. Yes, it's not 100% passive. You're still checking people's work, but it's minimal daily work. Like once again, I spend like an hour a week, right? So you want to act like a CEO, not a worker. The CEO do not do the work themselves. They hire others for writing, formatting, cover design. They oversee the operations so you can focus on growth. So hope you enjoyed the video. And if you need coaching on exactly how to implement everything that we talked about today, I do have a complete Amazon KDP coaching program. One of the modules in the coaching program is dedicated to outsourcing, systematizing, automation, those kind of things, right? Hiring people. So I have a very in-depth training on that in the program. If you guys want to learn more, then check out the first link in the description. It'll take you to a page like this. You can apply for a free 30-minute strategy call and see if this program is a good fit for you. Now, this program is not just a course, it's a course and coaching hybrid. So you get one-on-one coaching, a lot of bonuses, and much more, which you can ask about on the free call. But we got a lot of students that are absolutely crushing it. We got multiple students who did over $100,000 in a single month. Isn't that crazy, right? And we even have one student who did $279,000 in a single month, which is absolutely insane. So it's the first link in the description below, as well as all the tools and resources that I recommend in this video is also in the description. If you enjoyed this video and if you made it till the end, let me know in the comments, comment automate, and I'll try and answer as many questions as possible. But with that being said, leave a like, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.